When my father's will was read, my sister immediately claimed the $100,000 in savings for herself, mockingly leaving me with what she called that dirty shed in the countryside. What she didn't know was that Dad, always the clever planner, had hidden something valuable in a secret compartment that would completely change both our fortunes. 6 months later, my sister showed up at my doorstep with a desperate look in her eyes, asking if I had won the lottery, not realizing that the inheritance she had so smugly dismissed was worth 5 times what she had taken. My name is Rebecca, and 3 weeks ago, my father passed away after battling a prolonged illness. At his funeral, I found myself wondering if I could have done more for him during his final months. Despite visiting him regularly at the hospital, calling him daily, and supporting my mother through this difficult time, I still felt a lingering sense of regret. I wish I could have shown him his grandchildren, I whispered to my mother as we sat in the front row of the chapel. It had been a dream of his to see the next generation of our family. You did everything you could, Rebecca, my mother reassured me, squeezing my hand. Your father was so proud of you. My husband Thomas and I had been married for 4 years, but we had decided to wait on starting a family until we were more financially stable. Now, I couldn't help but wish we had made different choices. The service was beautiful, with many of Dad's colleagues and friends sharing stories about his kindness and integrity. My father had run a moderately successful automotive parts business for 30 years before retiring 5 years ago to focus on his hobby, restoring vintage motorcycles in a small shed next to the country home where I grew up. As we were leaving the chapel, I noticed my sister Amanda standing alone near the exit. We had once been close, but our relationship had deteriorated significantly over the past year. While I had rearranged my work schedule and driven the 2 hours from the city every weekend to help care for our father, Amanda had visited only twice during his entire illness. You didn't have to come today, I said stiffly as I approached her. He was my father too, she replied, adjusting the designer sunglasses that probably cost more than what my mother spent on the funeral flowers. Amanda had always been focused on appearances and status. After college, she had married Richard, the heir to a successful technology company, and embraced a lifestyle that revolved around luxury and social standing. Our different values had created a widening gap between us, but Dad's illness had turned that gap into a chasm. You could have shown that by visiting him while he was still alive, I said, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. I was busy, Rebecca. Some of us have important careers and social obligations. And some of us have basic human decency, I replied before walking away, not wanting to create a scene at my father's funeral. 1 week later, we gathered at my parents' home for the reading of the will. My mother had contacted Mr. Patterson, Dad's attorney, who arrived carrying a simple manila envelope. I've brought the will as requested, Mr. Patterson said, settling into an armchair in the living room. Your husband called me a few weeks before he passed away to update it. Amanda leaned forward eagerly. I heard Dad left quite an inheritance, she said, not even attempting to hide her interest. It's not all for you, Amanda, I responded sharply. I know that, she snapped back, glaring at me. Mr. Patterson cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable with the tension between us. Ladies, please, let's proceed in a respectful manner. He opened the envelope and removed a single sheet of paper. The will was straightforward. Our mother would inherit the family home and the surrounding property, while the remaining assets, consisting of approximately $100,000 in savings and a storage shed where Dad kept his motorcycle collection, were to be divided between Amanda and me. The savings and the storage shed should be fairly divided between my daughters, Mr. Patterson read from the document. I'll take the cash, Amanda declared immediately, not even waiting for discussion. How much is it exactly? The savings amount to $100,000, Mr. Patterson replied after consulting his notes. Amanda's eyes lit up, and she turned to me with a smug smile. You can have the storage shed. What's even in there anyway? Just Dad's old junk, right? I was about to protest when Mr. Patterson continued. The shed includes the building, a small plot of land, approximately 65 square feet, and all contents within. Contents? Amanda asked, suddenly showing renewed interest. What kind of contents? Mr. Patterson placed several photographs on the coffee table. These show the shed and its contents. We all leaned forward to examine the pictures. The exterior looked like a typical weathered shed, and the interior photos showed basic tools, some motorcycle parts, and general workshop equipment. nothing that appeared particularly valuable. I don't want that, Amanda said dismissively, wrinkling her nose. I'll definitely take the cash. I felt a surge of indignation. Wait a minute. That's not a fair division at all. Oh please, Amanda scoffed. You were always Dad's favorite. Now you want his money too. That's not true, I protested. I just think we should divide things equally. Well, I don't want some dirty shed filled with motorcycle parts. You can have it, Amanda insisted. I'm taking the cash. Our mother, who had remained silent throughout this exchange, finally spoke up. As long as Amanda won't complain later, I have no objections to her taking the money and Rebecca taking the shed. Why would I complain about getting $100,000? Amanda laughed. There's no way that shed is worth anything close to that. Mr. Patterson produced documents for us to sign, confirming our agreement to the division of assets. Amanda eagerly scrawled her signature, then looked at me expectantly. Come on, Rebecca. You care more about Dad's sentimental items than money, right? Sign it. Reluctantly, I signed the agreement, feeling that I had somehow been maneuvered into accepting an unfair arrangement. As Mr. Patterson gathered his papers, Amanda made a show of checking her designer watch. Well, if that's all, I have a luncheon to attend. Richard is waiting in the car. After Amanda left, I turned to my mother in frustration. Mom, why didn't you help me? That wasn't a fair division at all. My mother smiled mysteriously. I think you'll find your father was a fair man, Rebecca. Sometimes you need to look a little deeper to find the true value of things. The next day, I drove out to the storage shed with the key Mr. Patterson had given me. It was located about 10 minutes from my parents' home, next to the small field where my father had spent countless hours working on his motorcycle projects. As I approached the weathered structure, memories flooded back, helping Dad polish chrome parts on summer afternoons, bringing him lunch when he lost track of time, listening to his stories about each motorcycle he restored. The shed might not be worth $100,000, but it contained something more valuable to me, a connection to my father. I unlocked the door and stepped inside, immediately enveloped by the familiar smells of motor oil, metal, and the polish Dad always used. Dust motes danced in the sunlight streaming through the small window. Several partially restored motorcycles sat in various states of completion, surrounded by tools and parts organized in Dad's meticulously labeled system. I miss you, Dad, I whispered, running my hand along one of the vintage gas tanks. As I moved around the small space, something felt odd. The interior dimensions seemed smaller than what the exterior of the building would suggest. I stepped outside and walked around the perimeter, counting my steps. When I reached the back of the shed, partially obscured by overgrown bushes, I discovered something surprising, a second door. That's strange, I murmured, pushing aside branches to examine it. This rear entrance was not visible from inside the shed, which meant there had to be a false wall creating a hidden compartment. Excitement building, I searched through the main space for additional keys, eventually finding a small key taped under one of the workbenches. It fit perfectly into the lock of the rear door, which opened with a satisfying click. The hidden space was narrow but extended the full width of the shed. Centered in this secret compartment stood a large floor safe, the same one that had once occupied the corner of Dad's office at his business. Oh, Dad, I laughed, tears welling in my eyes. Always with the surprises. I remembered that Dad had given me a small key on a chain for my 30th birthday, saying cryptically, "You'll know when to use this." I had kept it in my jewelry box, assuming it was just a sentimental gesture. Now, I realized its purpose. I rushed home to retrieve the key, returning to find that it fit perfectly into the safe's lock. As the heavy door swung open, I gasped at what I saw inside. The safe contained dozens of carefully preserved vintage watches, Rolexes, Patek Philippe's, Omegas, each nestled in its own velvet-lined compartment. There were also several leather-bound notebooks detailing each acquisition, its history, and its market value. According to Dad's meticulous records, this collection represented his true passion investment over 30 years. With trembling hands, I called my mother. "Mom, you need to see this." After consulting with a professional appraiser recommended by Mr. Patterson, I learned that my father's watch collection was worth approximately $500,000, 5 times the amount of the cash inheritance Amanda had so eagerly claimed. The appraiser explained that many of these timepieces were rare models that had appreciated significantly in value over the years. Dad had apparently been quietly investing in them throughout his career, documenting each purchase with the precision of a museum curator. Your father had an exceptional eye, the appraiser told me admiringly. Some of these pieces are among the most sought after by serious collectors. Following my mother's advice, I consulted with an accountant about the inheritance tax implications. He recommended selling some of the watches to cover the tax obligations while keeping the pieces with the most sentimental value. I kept Dad's everyday pocket watch, a modest Longines that had belonged to his father, along with a few other pieces that figured prominently in my memories of him. The rest I sold through a reputable auction house, using part of the proceeds to establish a scholarship fund in Dad's name at the local community college where he had taken business courses as a young man. With my financial future now secure, Thomas and I decided the time was right to start the family we had been planning. We also sent thank you gifts to the relatives and friends who had supported our parents during Dad's illness. Modest but thoughtful gift cards enclosed with handwritten notes of appreciation. 6 months after the will had been settled, I was surprised to find Amanda on my doorstep one evening, looking uncharacteristically nervous. "This is unexpected," I said, reluctantly inviting her in. "I was in the neighborhood," she replied unconvincingly, glancing around my living room with poorly disguised curiosity. After serving coffee, I waited for her to reveal the real purpose of her visit. She fidgeted with her cup before finally blurting out, "Did you win the lottery or something?" "What?" "No," I replied, confused by the question. "Then did Thomas get some huge promotion or bonus?" I shook my head. "Amanda, what are you talking about?" "Money," she exclaimed, her composure slipping. "You're suddenly spending money. Aunt Patricia showed me the expensive gift card you sent her. You're remodeling your kitchen. You bought a new car. Where is it coming from?" I couldn't help but smile as understanding dawned. It came from Dad's shed. "The shed? What are you talking about?" I explained about the hidden room, the safe, and the valuable watch collection our father had assembled over decades. Amanda's face paled as I detailed the collection's worth. $500,000, she stammered. "At least," I confirmed. The final auction exceeded the appraiser's estimates. Amanda sat in stunned silence, the implications sinking in. She had smugly claimed what she thought was the more valuable portion of the inheritance, only to discover she had received just a fraction of the estate's true worth. But that's not fair," she finally sputtered. "We should split it. The will said to divide the assets fairly. The will divided the savings and the shed between us," I reminded her. "You chose the savings. I got the shed and everything inside it, including the safe and its contents. You signed the agreement, remember? You even made me promise not to complain later." "That's because I didn't know about the watches," she exclaimed, her voice rising. "Dad tricked me." "Did he?" I asked quietly. "Or did he know exactly what he was doing?" "You never visited him during his illness, Amanda. You were too busy with your important career and social obligations. Maybe he wanted to make sure his legacy went to someone who valued more than just money." Amanda's face flushed with anger, but before she could respond, her phone rang. She glanced at it, then answered with obvious reluctance. "Yes, Richard, I'm still at Rebecca's. No, I haven't asked her yet. I know we need it, but—" She abruptly ended the call, looking embarrassed. "Ask me what?" I pressed. Amanda sighed deeply. "Richard's company is having some financial difficulties. We've overextended ourselves. The inheritance money is gone, and we have some significant debts. I was hoping you might help us out." "Let me get this straight," I said incredulously. "You took the cash, spent it all in 6 months, and now you want me to bail you out with the money from Dad's watches?" "We're family," she said weakly. "Isn't that what family does?" I thought about all the times I had driven to the hospital while Amanda made excuses, about Dad working tirelessly to build his business and collection while she dismissed his passion as playing with junk, about the choice she had made to value money over sentimental connections. "No, Amanda. That's not what family does. Family shows up. Family cares. Family values more than just dollar signs." She left shortly after, anger and resentment evident in every rigid line of her posture. Later that week, I learned from my mother that Richard had filed for bankruptcy and that Amanda was frantically selling her designer clothes and accessories to cover their basic expenses. New beginnings. 3 months later, as spring breathed new life into the countryside around my parents' home, I shared some news with my mother over tea in her garden. I'm pregnant, Mom. Her eyes filled with tears as she embraced me. Your father would have been so happy. I know, I said, feeling both joy and sadness. I wish he could have known. I think he did know, in a way, she replied thoughtfully. That's why he left you the shed and everything in it, to secure your future and the future of his grandchildren. Thomas and I had decided to move closer to my mother's home, purchasing a comfortable house nearby with part of the proceeds from the watch sale. We were converting one of the rooms into a nursery, painting it the soft yellow color Dad had always associated with sunlight and new beginnings. In our backyard, we built a small shed modeled after Dad's workshop. Inside, I displayed the pocket watch and a few other pieces I had kept from his collection, along with photographs of him working on his motorcycles. It would be a place where our child could one day learn of the grandfather they never met, but whose planning and foresight had helped shape their life. As for Amanda, I heard through family that she had found a job as an assistant in a retail store, a humbling change from her previous lifestyle. Richard had filed for divorce, unwilling to weather financial hardship with her. One afternoon, I received a letter from her, not an email or text, but an actual handwritten letter. In it, she acknowledged her mistakes and expressed regret for the way she had treated our father and me. She didn't ask for money or help, just forgiveness and perhaps, someday, a chance to be part of her niece or nephew's life. I placed the letter in a drawer, not yet ready to respond but willing to consider the possibility of reconciliation. Dad had always believed in second chances and the capacity for people to change. Perhaps, in time, Amanda would demonstrate that she had learned what our father had known all along, that the true value of an inheritance isn't measured in dollars, but in the lessons, memories, and love that sustain us long after material possessions have faded away. In the quiet of evening, sitting in the garden with my hand resting on my growing belly, I could almost hear Dad's voice. The best investments are the ones that appreciate with time, whether they're vintage watches or family bonds. Choose wisely, Becky, choose wisely. And in that moment, I knew I had.